How's it going, everyone? In today's video I'm going to be taking you through the 3 stages and phases you want to go through to properly build and structure a training program. Why do we want to properly build a training program? Because we don't just want to jump in the deep end straight away, taking ourselves to the brink of death, because you're not going to get much, if any, long-term progress doing that. For the most part, the longer we spend in each of the stages that I'm going to tell you about, the better, because that's going to give you a higher starting point when you get to the next again stage, and it's just going to allow you to go further for longer. Having said that, we can get to a point of diminishing returns where if you spend a little bit too much time doing the same thing, it will be a little bit counterproductive. However, the point I'm trying to make is that don't just try and speed through everything as much as possible and chop and change after like a few weeks. And going through this process applies to any form of training, no matter what you're trying to achieve, whether you're trying to get stronger, trying to build muscle, and even stuff like trying to improve your cardiovascular endurance as well. Working your way through this is just going to ensure that you get the best long-term results. So the first stage you're going to start at is the accumulation phase. This is where you're just going to build up your body's training capacity, which is how much work your body can actually handle, because obviously the more work your body can handle, the better. The training here is not going to be massively specific, so you can pick a large range of exercises and different movements, and we want to keep the volume high, so you're going to be doing a higher amount of reps over a higher amount of total sets. Now, the key in being able to keep the volume high is to keep the intensity relatively low, because if you try and do a high amount of training at high intensity, you're going to burn out pretty quickly. So especially in the early weeks, just go in, get a little bit of a sweat on. If you're an RPE doc, this will look like something like an RPE 6 or 7. Over time, the intensity will come and you will be able to keep the volume high while working at a higher intensity. Now, the very start of your accumulation phase is going to look slightly different depending on your starting point. So for example, if I'm working with someone who is relatively new to training, or they've been off training for a while and they're just getting back into it, the first few weeks, the intensity is really just next to nothing, and it's just about going in and getting used to the training. And then after that, we'll start to worry about how hard you're actually pushing yourself. If you're already in the routine of training, then you will be able to push yourself a little bit harder earlier on and then just build from there. The next phase is a subscribe to me on YouTube stage. Now, this is the most important stage. It's going to be the best thing you can ever do for your training. I do new videos every Sunday, and if you're not already subscribed, please do so. It costs you nothing and it helps me out massively. If you find the video useful, you can also give it a like as well, but as I said last time, I don't really care if you don't find it useful. Just like it anyway. Now on to the actual next stage. After you've went through your accumulation phase and you've built up your training capacity, you're now going to move into the intensification phase. Now, most of your training in general will be in this stage, and as the word intense suggests, this is where you're just going to start ramping your training up and pushing yourself that little bit harder. You're going to drop the total volume and start to narrow your focus. So you're going to pick a few key exercises and really just focus on getting them nailed, and you'll almost build the rest of your training plan to work around those. Now, although we're dropping the volume, we don't want to drop it super low, because the whole point in doing the accumulation phase was to build up our training capacity, and we don't want to waste that because you went through that proper process of building yourself up. So because you've spent that period of time building yourself up, you will be able to handle more intense training still with a decent amount of volume, so just drop your total volume slightly. Now, after you've spent a period of time working in the intensification phase, you're going to move on to the final stage, which is the realization phase. And this is what everything's been building up to. This is where you're now going to go for all the marbles and all your hard work's going to pay off. This is the point here where you're going to start smashing all your PBs. Now, depending on what you're training for, your PBs will look slightly different. So you might be working up to a top single, like a 1 rep max. You might be going for a 3 rep max. You might be trying to beat a specific number of reps at a poundage. Once again, you're going to drop your training volume, and you may start to change the structure of your training. So for example, on your main exercises, you will probably start to drop the reps and the total amount of working sets that you do. However, we do want to try and keep a similar amount of volume on our secondary and assistance exercises as what you were doing during your intensification phase, because again, you've spent all that time building yourself up, so you will still be able to handle a decent amount of training, even though you're pushing yourself pretty hard. So from here, you will have around about a 6 to 8 week period where you can really just push yourself on as hard as you can and chase those big numbers. Around that 6 to 8 week mark, that's when fatigue's going to start to build up, and you will start to kind of get to the point where it's going to be pretty hard to make any progress. So when you get to that point, all you're going to do is drop back down into that intensification phase and spend a bit of period of time there before building yourself up, and you can jump back into a realization phase and start chasing PBs again. You can repeat that cycle a few times, and then what's going to happen is your body's then going to get used to doing the lower amount of training, And when you kind of get to the point where PBs aren't quite coming and the fatigue's building up once again, what you're going to do is you're going to drop all the way back down into your accumulation phase and start the whole process again, build up your training capacity, work at higher volumes, and then start working your way back up the ladder to chase whatever your new goals are. So in a nutshell, you just want to always make sure that you're working your way through the stages so that you're not jumping from like A to Z without going through B, C, D, E, etc. So hopefully you found that video useful and you can start implementing that into how you plan out your training plans. However, if you want all the thought of this taken out for you, please feel free to fill out my coaching inquiry form, which is linked in the description, and I'll happily give you a little message and we can have a little chat about how I can help you out with your training. My social media is also in the description as well, and once again, if you can like and subscribe, that would just be a massive help. And other than that, I will see you in the next video.